Hey, my name is Dr. TK, and welcome to the Abundant Creator Podcast. On this podcast show, we will uncover prosperous tools to help you become the CEO of your business and your life. I am a mom and wife who merged my knowledge as a clinical psychologist and professor for over 20 years into building a multi-six-figure mental health business and seven-figure digital product business serving others and doing what I love. Now, I believe that you can make a wildly abundant living unapologetically while also dreaming big, enjoying life, and making a huge impact. So if you are ready to achieve your biggest goals, then you are in the right place. So let's get started. Great day, everyone. Happy Mental Health Awareness Month. I am your host of this live stream podcast. My name is Dr. TK, clinical psychologist and therapist business coach. And throughout the month of May, we have been bringing on guests. To be quite frank, I really love having guests on the podcast because it does bring a different flavor, a different, I'm going to say deeper level of a discussion. And most importantly, I love to pour back into the mental health community for our providers, whether it be we have students tuning in that are in undergrad, graduate school, getting prepared to get licensed. And then we also have those that are in the field, either in their career, hopefully loving their career, and then those who are also tapping into or full blown into entrepreneurship. So today's going to be fully loaded. You definitely want to potentially have your pen and paper out because I am sure that something that one of our guests, because we have two, are going to say that can, help you in different areas. So to give you an idea of how we're going to do today, because we have more than one guest, is that I'm going to bring them on. They're going to talk to you a little bit about how they got into the entrepreneurship space, because in the month of May, we are talking about the evolution of therapists in business. We're going to incorporate self-care. How do we balance out different roles that we play in our life? And then we're also lastly going to talk about how we have structured or how they have structured their business to be able to help them create a schedule that they love so that they can do the things that they love. And so our guests are Melissa and Shayla. Now, funny thing is they're both in the same state. They are both alumni of our Adult Therapist Private Practice Academy. And they are also both our DTA, our coaching program, our support coaches. And so I always like to give that disclaimer because we did not do that on purpose, but they just so happen to be in the same location. And so I'm going to bring them both to the stage. Hey, ladies. All right, we'll start at like the top and go down. So Melissa, can you let our viewers and listeners on the podcast know a little bit about yourself and also explain these acronyms for our psychology students?
Yes, I guess I'll start with the acronyms because if those are watching on YouTube, you'll see it on the screen. So I am duly licensed in marriage and family therapy. So that's LMFT, so licensed marriage and family therapy. And then LMHC, which is licensed mental health counselor. In some states, they call it LPC if you're not in Florida. And so I have a license in both. And as far as what I have going on, I have a virtual practice in Florida focusing on relationships and couples therapy, mostly working with professional Black women who I like to say sometimes bring their partners to therapy and sometimes they don't, right? So depending on if I get individual couples through that. And was that all? What else do you want me to share?
Yeah, so are you in private practice right now?
Yes, I'm in private practice, solo private practice. I do other things outside of my practice. I'm actually the president-elect of the Central Florida Association of Marriage and Family Therapy, another long acronym. And so basically they're an organization that serves professionals who want to focus on marriage and family therapy, or systems work is what they like to call it as well, in the Central Florida area. And it's basically a professional organization like, APA and that kind of thing, but more local. So we can kind of get together in our community. And I also host retreats for women of color and couples of color. And so I'm excited to expand more in that area this year.
Yeah. Nice. Yeah. So don't worry, everybody, because I know we have also therapists that are interested in streams of income. So they're like, oh, retreats, So we rarely have anyone talk about like live events. So definitely want to circle back to that, and serving couples, because a lot of our clients don't want to serve couples because it's a different type of service. So all right. Shayla.
Yes, hello. Oh, Melissa, that was a lot. I didn't even know you had retreat. So that is pretty awesome to even learn that about you, especially with us being in the same state. So that's amazing. So I am Shayla Peterson, licensed clinical social worker. So that means that I went to school to get an MSW. And then after that, I did 2.5 years in clinical work to be able to get my LCSW. I also have an LISWCP, which is for South Carolina. I'm currently in Florida. I'm also a qualified supervisor, which meant that I took some additional steps. So there's all these letters, but not to confuse you, but just wanted to share a little bit about that. But outside of the letters, what I do is I do psychotherapy in my own private practice, helping women with anxiety and life balance. For some reason, they seem to go hand in hand, right? So I want to be able to like reduce the anxiety and increase the balance if we can do that. But during the day, I'm a behavioral health consultant, which is pretty amazing because that just kind of sums up all the education and the work and the experience that I've done over the years. And now I'm be able to share it with a community mental health organization here in Florida as well. When I'm not doing any of those things, I may be doing mommy stuff, wife things, enjoying time by the water, which is an amazing place when you're here in Florida. I also help other therapists create streams of income via membership. So pretty busy, but we found a way to kind of balance it all.
So we're going to talk about it because I know that also when you do special streams of income, some of the streams of income that we talk about, especially on this podcast with our community, they're seasonal. So we're going to talk about, a little bit maybe about like, launches and when doors like that open. And, if someone is listening and they want to connect with our guest today, we're going to make sure to upload their Instagram, social media stuff, and then important links so that you can stay connected. And I would highly encourage you to head over to social media platforms that they share and stay connected, because even though something may not be available today, it doesn't mean that it won't be available 2 months from now, right? And depending on when you're tuning into this, it may be right on time. And so now let's slow down the conversation. Let's talk about, like, the both of you ladies are in private practice and you talked a little bit about who you serve. And so how can I ask this? Let's share let's share one or two big wins that you've experienced in private practice. And I know that's a loaded question because you've experienced a lot of wins, but like at least 2 wins, and it can be of different nature. And I like for therapists to hear about different wins, as you all have seen us do in DTA, because sometimes people also minimize non-tangible wins. And if they don't see their caseload increasing, they don't see the money as they see it in their mind or on their vision board, they deem it as they're not growing. And we know that that's not true. And so can you think about 2 wins that you've experienced in your business, and then one thing that you've learned from maybe a setback in business? And so I don't know who wants to go.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and jump in.
Okay.
So my first win is actually, I consider it like a personal / professional, and I'm sure we'll probably get into like the balance part of our lives and things, but I have to start there because that, dictates a lot of how I experience my work and my practice. And so being able to have, so a win for me is being able to have a practice that I love for many reasons. One is because I'm able to create a schedule that works for me and my clients, and I attract the clients that I serve best clinically, but also we relate well as humans, right? So I happen to serve a lot of professional Black women. I am that, as well as moms. I am that. Wives. I am that. So like just being able to have clinical dialogue and helping and support them, because that's my primary role, but also knowing that they need flexibility, I need flexibility, right? And so I'm able to like create a primary schedule, but also at the same time be able to meet people's needs and not feel like when you work for agencies, sometimes feeling guilt or that you have to stay locked into a solid schedule. So although I have a primary schedule, it's pretty fluid. And I do have, SOPs, procedures, and things to make sure that I'm in line and my clients are in line, but still gives myself the flexibility that I need and they need. And so I know working for agencies, sometimes that can create some anxiety if you're balancing different things. And so to me, that's a super win. I mean, that's why one of the reasons I left to go into private practice. And so I'm going into my 3rd full year. And so when I was able to accomplish that within my 1st full year and be comfortable in that, that's something that I always go back to every so often when I get anxious or have anything that's going on, like ultimately I am where I was wanting to be a few years ago. So let's settle in that. So to me, that's a super win for myself and my family. So
that's good.
yeah, for sure. And then the second one I would say is moving into retreats. And it's funny because it wasn't something. So one thing I learned going into private practice and getting support for that is how to do a blueprint. Dr. TK talks about it a lot. And so every now and then I go back to it, and the retreats are not on there. So so it's funny that I feel like it's a win, but it's something I kind of fell into because a colleague of mine introduced me to it. We co-collaborate right now. And so it's just kind of gave me opportunity to like grow in an area that I didn't anticipate. But again, if I go back full circle into my agency work, I was an outreach program director for a previous counseling center university I used to work with in other agencies before, like directing outreach and programming. And so I kind of think of retreats as like my outreach programming I used to think of when I was in agency work. So it's kind of cool to see, like, although it wasn't on my blueprint, it had been a part of my love of my work in other people's, places. And so from my own practice, my own place of work, be able to kind of expand on that in a meaningful way. And so to me, it's like a win that I didn't expect, and I'm falling in love with it. So that's something that I definitely think it's a win. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah. Anything that you want to share with therapists who are in a position where they feel like their growth is stunted? Like, has there ever been a time where you may not have felt like you were going to see it out and then everything turned around?
For sure. So the setback question. So I think for me, I won't call it an issue. I think it's a good thing. But one thing that I kind of experience a lot is that I am very creative and I'm good at a lot of things. And this is not being like boastful. It's just like, I just happen to be. And so I like to focus on refining my skills in a lot of areas. And so I kind of had what you call, Dr. TK, the shiny object syndrome the first year or two. And so I noticed, like, ending my second year, which is last year, feeling burnt out in terms of like, I gave a lot to my business the first 2 years. And so going into this year, I definitely wanted to slow down. And my word for the year is flow. Because when I look back at like my revenue and how much I was able to do as far as impact, it was amazing, but it was just me doing that. And so this year, I've slowed down in a few different ways. And so sometimes it feels like a setback because I want to kind of go out there and do all the same things and do more. But then the more I kind of think about it, I think about how tired I've been. And so it feels like a setback in terms of how do I keep up with myself, I guess, in a way. And so that can be hard because you want your business to grow and scale and all of the beautiful words. But when it's just you and trying to figure out how to make that shift, that's hard, right? So when I look at my revenue and different things and the clients, I'm like, oh, I could be doing more. I could be trying to get more people. And it's like, but if I do that, then I'm going to feel even more of a setback. So it's a setback, but it's also a learning at the same time. And so I'm trying to give myself grace to not feel like I have to keep up with myself how I was before, because I'm in a different place now. And I don't want to truly burn myself out to try to do that. And so that's what I have to share.
Yeah. Let me just recap for people, because there were some gold nuggets in there. Okay. I take notes, y'all. When we got podcast guests. So one thing that I heard, but I'm going to coin it. We did it in the mastermind a couple of years ago. We call it the gold mine activity. And the gold mine activity, y'all should all do it with your friends. It ain't got to be a therapist, but it's cool to do it with other entrepreneurs. I think Shayla was on Wi-Fi at the time because you were in New York. But I had like 12 mastermind students. We were in Vegas, and I said, I want y'all to go into groups of 3. DTA students may have heard us talk about this before. And I want you all to share in 15 minutes, what do you do outside of being a therapist? Because what I heard you say, Melissa, is that you didn't even realize that you had embraced a skill set, or I'm going to even say a liking or a loving for something that could help you in another stream of income. And sometimes we don't connect the dots. And one of the big things that a lot of those therapists learned is that they can, one, barter for services because they know way more than just therapy. And the example I usually give is like, people who know me know that I'm really good at organization and paperwork, but people who don't know me just may assume that I like certain people who may come out of jail, like that they just know like basic stuff. But then if I were to join like DTA and I was your accountability group member, you may just assume, oh man, she's moving faster than me, not realizing that my job for 5 years working for a county facility was doing nothing but quality assurance. So yes, I'm going to run faster in terms of creating SOPs because it's now part of my brain. Right. And so you want to get to know people around you so that because that is the definition of a mastermind. That is the beauty of a mastermind, is that you are able to talk about what can propel your entrepreneurship goals simply by utilizing your past skill set that you don't even know you have. So I just wanted people to like the gold mine, you sitting on one, literally. Also, again, just summarizing, is the quantity game versus the quality game. Is, you all want to pay attention to if you're tired. And like for Melissa, what I hear is like, ooh, we got to work on Melissa getting the team member. Because also, even if Melissa wanted to continue to serve all those people, it doesn't mean she has to serve them one-on-one. What she's going to talk about later is how she can still serve a higher level of the same people's problem, but now as a group, right? And giving yourself grace. I think that was important with the fluctuation of schedule, okay? And allowing yourself to change things up and be okay with it and not take on more, So thank you for sharing all that.
Thank you.
All right, Shayla.
Awesome. So I think the things that I have learned from being a business owner / in private practice is when I'm just going to go with the balance, right? It really gave me that flexibility to be able to balance my schedule. I knew that I would go into private practice, one day and, have a cash-based practice as well, but I didn't know it was going to happen so soon. But it was really a blessing because when my husband was in the military, I literally moved my practice around from several states, right? And so granted, people business can do that, but not everyone's, right? So that it gave me the flexibility to move around to each state with ease, right? Hence the several different licenses. Also, did it allow me to be able to drop my baby off and pick her up from school, whether we chose to use the after school program or not. So those flexibilities were really important to me. And then also, because of the type of women that I serve in my practice, it allowed me to have hours that worked for them. Well, if they have kids, most of the time they're busy after work, and so am I. So it worked that we saw each other during lunchtime, like 12 noon, or early in the morning after we dropped the kids off at like 8:30 or 9 a.m. Those are hot spots, right? Or the 2 o'clock right before it's time to get in that carpool lane. So my practice allowed me to create hours that not only worked for me, but also the women that we serve. So it just gave me balance. So once everybody was home, I was home and relaxed as well. So that balance that it gave me was great. The other thing is systems. I didn't know how important they are, and I can just go ahead and attribute that to Dr. TK. But having systems in my business to where my practice can run by itself without me just sitting there at the computer, whether it's to set up a consultation, which I have perfected that and even teach it to other therapists through DTA program, which is pretty awesome. Even just having an EHR, right? That's a system as well. I don't know if you guys know that, right? So the EHR that you pick, or even utilizing AI, right, to develop a system for you to use and share with your other team members, having your VAs, all of those things are systems that are in place that allow your practice to run smoothly. So you're not all the way just in there all day, every day. And so I can just show up as a therapist. So if there are the two things that I've taken away from from my practice, is that balance, being able to have that balanced life, and then also having those systems in place that allow for me to have the balanced life.
Yeah. And then anything from I'm gonna say the growth perspective, because you've been in our program since I'm gonna say in 2 waves of economical shifts. Yes. I know Melissa came in at the tail end of the first economical shift, which was the 2020 situation. And then, now we're going through the 2022 to now, the current wave of just economy and now potential politic things that are shifting. And so, I know that therapists, I told my husband and my team the other day, it's funny. It's like talking to teenagers, not calling therapists teenagers, but this is how I look at doing therapy with teenagers. If you don't ask teenagers the right questions, they're not going to answer the question. You have to ask them the right question, the right way. Right. And so, with therapists, I noticed that when I pull y'all in, when we try to tap in and try to figure out what's going on with them in terms of growth, they usually talk about the busyness of the schedule, and being tired or potentially burnt out at their capacity. And all those things are very real, not trying to, minimize any of it. But what tends to be missing is the accountability of what you actually have control over. Like, we didn't have control over the influx of clients, but we had to adapt, right? We don't have control over the economical shifts, but we can take some of these ideas that Melissa was talking about and take action, but we have to slow ourselves down to implement the systems that Shayla said. So Shayla, you've seen a lot, like, especially like in our programs, and you've interacted with a lot of our therapists that have seen changes as well. Can you share with the therapists, just so they can see that like we're human too, and our business goes through fluctuation? How has your business dealt with ups and downs, or is that when you pulled in another stream of income?
No. So with the ups and downs, the streams of income came actually during the ups, right? But I've said this before too. I think we've done a podcast, and I was like, the streams have to be streaming, right? Your mainstream has to be streaming. And so even when, let's say, one of my first streams of income was when I written the book, Hey Sis, that came when my practice was doing really well. It was during, an economic shift that was just like up, 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 up. But because I had systems in place, I had the time to write that book and also to promote it, right? And to get out there and pretty much kind of leverage my practice in a sense, because my book was written for the women that I've worked with. So I think when we talk about preparing ourselves for the different shifts, it's also just like making sure that your mainstream is it's streaming. So having your books in order, knowing your numbers, all of that stuff, because usually when we bring something else in, we're taking away from something else, right? I'm going to borrow a little bit from my practice to, leverage my book, or to leverage a coaching program, or to invest in something else. So you definitely have to have one stream of income that is doing well, or that's working for you. Sometimes that's somebody's full-time job, right? That can be you being a director. That can be you being, working in outreach at an agency, right? And maybe working at a nonprofit. So you need to have that one, and then you can start to branch off other things from there. Now, the good thing about that is when, let's say, the economic shift started to change, up, down, 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 up, 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 because I have several streams of income, it offsets it. Right. So it's like, okay, well, maybe I'm not seeing as many clients. Oh, but the book sales are doing well. Oh, the membership program is doing well. So it offsets it. I just kind of shifted where my work is. But because we're multi-talented, right, as clinicians, as therapists, we can wear several hats and switch in and out of them.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm taking so many notes. Look, okay. Well, I got I'm gonna pull up some keywords because I'm trying to like hit therapists in this business therapy session real quick. So one thing I heard you say in the beginning was, and actually both of you attributed to this, like you chose caseloads, or you were attracted to clients that also were in the life season that you were in. That doesn't work for everybody, but if it works for you, use it. Because on the flip side, just more speaking from the clinical supervisor like side, I had a professor that told me when she started having kids, she had to pay attention to her tolerance level, because the clients that she was serving in a more marginalized population, she was a Caucasian woman, but she loved certain communities up in the Bay Area. And she said some of these kids were being neglected. So you can kind of gather a mother's tolerance is at 0 when they see other parents aren't doing what they should be doing. And so she actually chose to not work with kids when she started having kids until her kids were like 18. So what I'm saying is know your tolerance. But as far as like flexibility and schedule, what I hope everybody is hearing is that the both of these ladies have found a population that they love. And it also works with flexibility with their schedule, because that means that if they change their schedule, the clients are way more understanding. Okay, so that was a real good one. And then also not being allergic to delegation is key. Not being allergic to SOPs. And I love how you shared the value in the SOPs in terms of reframing it and looking at it as this is another step toward time freedom. Because if I have to sit in front of my computer all day, if I have to answer every email and do every consultation via email first and, all these things, then like, to me, that's taking time away from your marriage, taking a time away from your daughter or family time, vacation. And then one book that I'm just going to throw in here, I know you all have heard about it, is The Dip, because what you just explained with streams of income is the benefit of pivoting. Now, not everybody's made for entrepreneurship. True entrepreneurs that want their business to stay open will pivot or recognize that they're in what's called a cul-de-sac and shift. So as Shayla had mentioned, if something starts changing in her stream of income, she's not going to throw in the towel and say, oh my God, my business sucks, I need to shut down the doors. She's going to look at other opportunities that she's already created with systems. Or if she has time, like let's just say if Melissa decides to have a different type of retreat and she got 10 hours of free time. Well, instead of throwing in the towel, she's going to say, I got the skill set from collaborating with my friend over here, but now I want to do this type of retreat, but I know how to do it though. So I'm going to take these 10 hours. I'm going to build out these systems. I'm going to move faster because I've already built out systems in my private practice. And I'm just highlighting the word systems because that is the biggest area that therapists seem to be allergic to for whatever reason. But that's the main system that trains you. It trains you to come out here and want a private practice, but you don't want to create one. Like, that's crazy. That's crazy. So let's go there. All right. So, so both of you ladies are in our DTA program, or you're alumni. Just going to flow with this conversation. Some of them will watch it now or watch it later. What is some imparting positive words that you may want to pour into them so that they can do the work? Because the both of you talk about two main big areas in private practice, which Melissa, for everybody, they basically learned something in our program that they already had in their private practice. They fine-tuned it, and then they made their own system. That's what we want. We want y'all to personalize everything we give y'all, right? And so Melissa focuses on how to help therapists create their own framework, AKA your own theoretical orientation. How do you get clients from pre-consultation to graduation of treatment? And she helps y'all build a map beyond the portal. Shayla comes in and she helps you take the idea of having consultations, but let's convert these consultations for people who are a great match. And then she gives you another deeper map. But we also know, because both of y'all to me are still teachers, that people will say, oh my God, this information was so beautiful and great. And people do implement, but more people don't. So y'all are implementers. Y'all are what we would consider unicorns.
Well, thank you.
But I do want to highlight that you still have to do something behind the scenes to see the results of your company. So if I was a therapist right now listening, whether I'm in DTA or not, and I'm like, well, they different, and people can just downplay y'all results, what information would you like to share with them so that they can see that if they just do the work, they will see results a lot faster?
Can I go?
Yeah, go ahead.
So one thing that I really appreciated about your content, Dr. TK, and eventually coming into the program, and now I'm seeing, and I agree, I feel like it's so funny because I said it on a call the other day that, like, even though I'm a support coach and I help other therapists in the group in that capacity, I still feel like I'm a student every day. So I still be asking questions like I just got here. I'm not shy about that. And so I think one thing that I think would be helpful for therapists and DTA, but also just in general to know, like, if you want to create a framework, is that you already have the information, the training, the tools to do that. It's just that we sometimes may feel maybe whether it's imposter syndrome or maybe just second guessing ourselves or whatever. I mean, even if we think about when we were like called baby therapists, right? Like, and I talk about this in a framework call of like, when they started asking us, like, what's your theoretical orientation? When you're like in grad school, like, I don't know, like, what does the book say I'm supposed to say, And so eventually we start identifying like, oh, we like this model, that model, whatever. And most nowadays therapists are eclectics, what they call it, or like integrative, right? We have different things. But even with that, we still have a primary therapeutic style. Like, we still have a primary therapeutic model we pull from, whether that's from our preference or from what we feel like is most effective for our clients, or both, right? And so in the call that I do with the DTA group, and I think it would be good for everyone to know, is that if you look at what you already do and try to put it in your own words, in the words that you want the client you want to serve or potential client you want to serve to understand, talk to them in regular language, not therapeutic terms, then that will be helpful, I think, to take away any of that anxiety that therapists might have or uncertainty about, because how it felt like when we were in school or like right out of school being licensed and getting licensed, or like doing case presentations and all those things that we even then knew how to do to a degree, and we're still learning. I still think that's the same kind of feeling we have when we come in business owners or private practice owners, and then trying to like market ourselves to the clients, because we're thinking market for business, but also clinically, like, how do I get the people that I want to work with and I can help best? And the framework helps people do that. But I think that gets some nerves come with that, because of how do I say it? You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And so that's the part that I think once they know that, like, oh, I have it, I do it every day, I just have to find a way to put it together in words so people can understand it. I think that's what I would share.
Yeah, I'm gonna call that, you've heard, I think I said it on one of the recent calls, like putting the pieces of the puzzle together. Like, if we even want to reframe how some people look at coaching, because that's a whole nother podcast episode that we can have about, I've already invested in like getting my degree and getting my CEs, but you mean to tell me I got to invest again? Well, yeah, you spent 20 years doing that. Business isn't going to come just like overnight. But the reference that I have started to share is, think about support and coaching and mentorship with your business as these people will help me cut out time that I'm going to be using to try to figure this out on my own. It's just like you trying to go to grad school through google.com. Like, at some point, you got to go get the real information in a very concise way so that you can graduate and get licensed, right? But what will happen is you will have all of these pieces, like let's just say the eclectic therapist, all of these pieces, and you may need the confidence, you may need to put it in front of someone who can see the full picture. And really what we're doing is shaving off time by telling you where to put the pieces, which means you already have a lot of the pieces. But I also want to acknowledge there are pieces in business that you absolutely do not have. And if you want to run your business off of a half-built puzzle, this is why your business will not last. Okay. Mm-hmm. So I just want to say that for internal DTA students, what Melissa's also talking about is we got to start building up your confidence. And when I say we, I mean you. Like, you have to go and work, just like you tell your clients to get all these resources, you have to get resources for your confidence. We as coaches in the program are not the end all be all. I promise you, and they can attest to this, we will not be your only coaches in your business if you actually want to grow. You're going to have to expand and tap into different people based on what you need. And some of y'all outright need a confidence coach. That's it.
Yeah.
Literally. Shayla?
No, I'm so happy that you said it, because I'm sitting here like, wow, I can't wait to speak. But yes, it is the mindset, right? I think when we're opening up our practice or these other businesses, we want to lead as being a therapist. And one of the things that I share, with therapists is just like, okay, now that you have a practice, you're no longer a therapist first. You are a business owner first. So therefore, you have to have a business mindset first, right? And we can even tie that into your consultation system, right? People are pretty much like, I have a system for this. Shouldn't I? They just come. I have this skill. I'm an anxiety therapist. I specialize in trauma. I have EMDR. Ooh, that's great. And so does half the other therapists, right? So this is now a business deal. And I don't know, y'all gonna feel funny saying it, but I'm sorry, the marketing, the selling of yourself, granted, we're still only 4% of the population as it relates to Black therapists, right? And I know we have a variety listening, but still, even with that and the numbers of people seeking therapy, well, what makes you awesome for them? What makes you the therapist? We have a lot here in Florida. Like, what makes you the therapist for people to come and see you? This is where you're going to sell yourself. And then we're gonna take it to Melissa, where we're using that framework. She's gonna teach you how to have that framework that's going to speak directly to those clients. And so we have to have that business mindset. Now, once they're on the other side, you have payment, you have their information, you realize that you guys are a good fit. Now we can do that clinical work, but you have to lead first with this business mindset. How are you going to keep up with your numbers, your money? What's going on? How much is going out? A lot of times you guys want to calculate what's coming in, but y'all not calculating what's going out. Hello, taxes. Hello, business. Hello, the business taxes, all the things. Like, if I see one more time somebody telling me about how much they got coming in, that's great. High five to you. And I want to celebrate you, but I also want you to calculate how much you have going out too, because that's not all your income.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
What's the profit and loss statement say?
Okay, look, hello. When your CPA send that to you, you're like, woo. Well, all right then. It was a good month, was it? So, and I mean, I kid and I laugh about it because I want to make light of it, but it's really serious because now you're not just a clinician, you're a business owner first and you're a clinician second.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Can I add
Go
something?
Go ahead.
That's okay. Yeah, I was gonna just say, I'm glad we're having this conversation. It's so helpful, right? And that's the part I was trying to get at too, was like that merger between like us being therapists first, because we know that's what we were trained in. We weren't trained as business owners.
Mhm.
And I think the way I got myself to thinking about like, we all have that level of confidence that we need to get, because before you own your own business, your agency is marketing you, right? Like to come to this agency to come see one of the therapists is there and you're going to be one of them. But having to kind of put yourself out there to that degree can be anxiety provoking for a lot of when we start. But I think tapping into what you know as a therapist to help, because part of, to me, that combination is, yes, I'm a therapist, and what I know how to do is build relations with people, like my clients,
Mhm.
right? And so the marketing part, I think of it as, to help decrease anxiety. I'm quoting just building a relationship with your community of whoever wants to hear what you have going on, and they may not all become clients, right? And so I know for me, like I get a lot of calls. I'll tell Dr. CK this. I get a lot of calls from couples across the country, and I'm only licensed in Florida. I'm like, I got to get these retreats going because I need these people to come to me. You know what I mean? Because obviously something I'm saying, I'm building a relationship with them already, right? And so I think when we think about the relationship with our clients and agency work before we do our own stuff, we think about the intake as a first time. But as a practice owner, that the consultation call, the social media content, the ad, the therapy directory that we're on, that's the first contact. And so if you think about that as a first contact, then it kind of helps you see like you're a therapist, you're a human, you're a business owner trying to connect with other humans to come to you. And that's really the marketing we're trying to do. Right. And so I just think that helped me so much, like put that together in my mind. So
yeah, I mean, I'm glad that you all are just saying mindset, because the conversation that either my team and I have, or that I have with non-therapists, people are always asking me, especially when I go into like a coaching program, or I did like a strategy call yesterday with someone around marketing. And I said, one of my biggest concerns, and I'm like, I hope that I'm not overstretching, but I just really feel like this is the case. I'm dealing with the biggest group of overthinkers on earth, because we're special, in our own way. Like we think for a living. And so it's quite interesting that what I find, and it's actually going to come out in this boot camp. That's why I've been announcing on Instagram, like, oh, this is about to be different, because I've been listening to like my intuition, and my intuition is like, no, they actually need more business therapy, because I can literally give you the niche formula, looking at your money, as Shayla talked about, a formula. But if you're allergic to opening up your bank account, it doesn't matter. If you believe that you just want to show up and be a therapist and business is second, it doesn't matter, because all you're going to do, and we've seen this in our program, and I mentioned it this week actually to them, is that, if all you're doing is going into the Kajabi portal and searching time audit, like you're searching template, you're actually not operating as a full-blown business, because a full-blown business is what systems need to be built around the templates for the templates to work for you. Otherwise, all you're doing is looking for homework assignments, like how you give it to your clients, And so I'm really happy that you both had acknowledged that mindset is key, and that we have to own the role of business owner now first, which is very uncomfortable, because it's something that a lot of us don't know how to do. Um, so with all this said, of like all these ins and outs of business, like what can therapists who either want a prosperous private practice or they're in our program, how have the both of you been able to cultivate like a happy life? Like outside of business, because they heard about the flexibility of schedules, but let's talk about some fun stuff. Like, what has your private practice or streams of income afforded you to be able to do, either for yourself, with friends, or with family?
yeah, I think for me, so I've always planned to go into private practice at some point. I didn't, similar to Shayla, actually, it happened way sooner than I expected. And so the way I honestly got into it in the time that I did was something that was challenging in a lot of ways. And so to kind of give a little more context for, those that are moms and balancing different lives. So my son, he was born early, long story short. So he has a lot of developmental things going on. He's doing really, really well now. You got to worry about them. But at the time, 3 years ago, I needed a lot of help. So me and my husband's family live in South Florida. We're in Central Florida. So we had to have help come, every few months or whatnot. And so the time when I had to go back, so you remember we were doing like hybrid and like going back to the office, in stages at that time or whatever during the C word, right, so to speak. Mm-hmm. And so when we're going back to the full blown, everybody goes back to the office during agency work. My mom was supposed to actually come up and help, but then we unfortunately had a loss in the family and she had to attend to that. And so at that time, literally I had to go back to work in 2 or 3 days. And I was like, what am I supposed to do? So I called my supervisor. She's like, just come in, we'll figure out something or whatever. Long story short, they couldn't figure nothing out. And so I had to leave. And so although the story is one that was challenging, what it did afford me to do was look at it as an opportunity to create more time for myself. Because otherwise I would have been working 8 to 5, 8 to 6. My son would have been at some, daycare, which is fine for some people, but in that case, that wasn't an option for our family. And so we had to get creative on like, how do we do that? And so going into it was a lot of anxiety, uncertainty, and then I started to look at it more as an opportunity to create a practice that I love. And now it's funny because when I first, I don't know if you remember this, Dr. TK or even Shayla, but like when I first started DTA, I would tell this story, not a lot, but a few times because I was still nervous about doing the work. And so now it's been like, 3 years I've been in it. And so I don't even think about that story until people ask me the question, but it was on my mind a lot the first year because that's how it's like trauma, right? Like, you're like, let's get to it. I didn't expect all this. And so now when I think about it, I think about retreats, I think about my clients, my couples clients, I think about being able to use my marriage and family degree or license, I should say. And then also now I'm a president of an organization that's connected to marriage and family. So there's so many things that grew from that I didn't expect, right? And so it created opportunities, things I wouldn't have been able to do should I have stayed there full time and try to balance everything. Mm-hmm. So for me, at this point, I've been able to like slow down from the business side, but also give myself grace and time. And so now I take walks in the morning, which I never used to do. Now I lay down for 5 minutes, 30 minutes, an hour. My son is at, now I do the simple thing. I know it sounds so funny, right? But the first 2 years,
it's great. It's great.
Yes, thank you for that validation. But honestly, like the things you look, oh wow, the trees is green. Like you just see things that you weren't seeing before. And so I'm just happy that I got a chance to have the life that I have now and really enjoy the work. Like when I always love working with the young student population and college students. Is my other than couples and Black women, like they're my next group. But at the same time, it wasn't like my number one choice. It was my number one choice for agency, right? But like it's different for like if I could work at any agency, I would work here versus like if I can create a practice that I love, this is what it would look like. It feels very different. And so I know with my clients too, like it's funny because like when I do all my work is virtual counseling wise, right? And so now that I'm doing retreats for the past couple of years, I'm seeing them in person. So it's kind of cool. Melissa, you're real. I'm a real person, y'all. I got flesh and bones. I breathe. I'm not AI. I promise. I'm not an AI therapist. I'm really a real person. And so it's kind of cool to be able to take something. Retreats are not on my blueprint, right? It wasn't on my original business plan. I had other ideas, which are really cool. I still want to tap into them at some point. But now I get that beautiful marriage between like having the practice I love virtually. I can have my son whatever times I need to be with him, and then also be able to see my clients in different capacities now and take breaks. So that's how I feel about my situation. So.
Yeah, I like how you kept saying the word opportunity because that's a reframe, like going back to what the both of you had said earlier about mindset. Is how is this working for you, not against you? And I think even by just apply, I heard that from like Tony Robbins or something like, how is this working for me? And if you start looking at things in that way, you will recognize you can allow yourself to be more patient. You won't have a breakdown because we know that these things create more anxiety. I think all of us have experienced that at some point, but it does take a different type of person, what they would consider the 1% to 3%. We've been talking about that a lot with our team, like the little unicorns, right? Y'all, like it takes a different mindset to be able to slow down and think like that because people have those thoughts, but I don't think people are allowing them to come through. They're just like, nope, gotta go back to this 9 to 5 job. Like they don't even see the other side. They just shut it down. And that's why they stay at where they are. So I thank you for saying the word opportunity like so many times.
Yeah. Can I add one more piece of that? And I can have So the thing about going into a situation, like everybody's situation or story of going to private practice is very unique. And so for me, I'm a planner. Like I'm a planner, and it's so funny because I joined DTA. I think I say a semester, something a semester sometimes, but like the fall before I had to leave my job unexpectedly. And so I always think about like, man, everything aligned even be before I knew that it was going to be what it was. And so it's one of those things where instead of focusing on just how, because it was a lot, like first how it happened is like, well, how can I take that energy and like shift it into something that I can really enjoy and care about? And I love how like my story, my narrative kind of changed even for me, because it was that first year about like how I got here and it didn't happen how it was supposed to happen. And even though I got all this resources and help, it's still a lot, and now it's like, I don't even really think about it unless I have to think about it. And so it feels like almost a completely different practice now, because I'm so far along and everything. And my son is doing amazing too. So it's like a nice perk of like the sacrifice you make as a mom, but be able to still enjoy your work that sometimes they tell us you can't do both, and that's not fair to us. So
yeah, that's good. That's good.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So one of the things, I think I'm going back to the original question too, about like the fun of, being able to like have your practice. And so one of the things is I've met some amazing people just from being in practice, right? From networking, from being part of coaching programs, or just reaching out to a therapist online, whatever it may be. So that is definitely one of the fun things where we may have meeting up and had lunch. Like I'm definitely looking forward to Melissa and I getting together, of course. And then just like when there's retreats or, what am I saying? Like coaching events that happen. Like I've been to Vegas. I've been able to go to LA, which was where I'm from, and to be able to talk and share some knowledge. And I think that has definitely been a plus, because when you work for an organization, you got to pick and choose which events you're going to, if they're going to fund them or not. But to even have a fully funded trip that you're going to because they may have hosted you, or you've been able to use that as a business expense, and then sometimes bring your family. Like I brought my daughter with me for a whole week to LA, right? And to be able to have that, that has definitely been a win, just to be able to rearrange my schedule with no problem, and to be able to do that. So that has been a plus for me.
Yeah. And then self-care, what are the both of you ladies do for self-care? That can be like just self-care for you, or also like fun stuff.
Yeah.
So this year I've shifted from self-care to self-love. That's my new thing now. So I'm like, it feels a lot more, deeper, like, okay, how can I really care for myself? It gets me more motivated. But honestly, it's just kind of slowing down. I know I talk about slowing down my business, but really just slowing down just with myself. Like, usually like if I'm having meals, I'm kind of like rushing through them, or it's so funny. Like usually I would prep like my husband's meals and my son's meals for the week, and I wasn't doing mine for a while. And then I was eating, but I was just putting my things together real quick. And then one day I was talking to my husband, I'm like, I should probably start making my meals. So he's like, yeah, you should. And so simple things like that. And so I've been looking at like just different ways to improve my my eating habits and those type of things to give me energy. Because a lot of times, the things that we eat just on a rush are not good for our bodies, and we kind of get lethargic and stuff. And so I think for me, I kind of like shift, again, another mindset shift of not just caring for myself, really loving on myself, like giving myself time. I don't have to rush through everything, because that's my big thing, like trying to get things done. And so it kind of allows me an opportunity to really enjoy even the simple things that I'm doing, right? And so like I said, I started taking walks in the morning. Like I started taking like 10, 15-minute walks, and now it turns to 1 hour walks. I don't know how that happened, but it just happened. So I'm listening to podcasts, listening to like music that makes me happy. And then I just find myself, and I live in a pretty decent neighborhood. So so I'm looking at just let me go on this street right here. Like, let me just take my time and see what's going on over there. So it really helps me to like just take time with myself and do what I like to do. So
yeah, that's good. I know you laughed at one of my videos when I talked about taking a mom shower. Like, ladies, stop taking mom showers and actually just stand there in the water. Okay.
Yes.
Shayla?
Yes. I'm laughing because, the whole mom shower thing is like, I just want to sit and take a long bath. I don't want to have to do a quick shower, but a long bath where no one's knocking at their door, or there's no little paws of a dog trying to get underneath the whole thing. So I definitely can relate. So taking long baths is definitely self-care. Also walking, just like Melissa. We have a lot of like, I don't know, some people may call them lakes. I call them the runoff of the water because it rains so much here. To be able to walk around around and see the ducks and fish. So that has been a plus. But also because I like outdoors, I like to take my computer outdoors, right? And be able to like do work or catch up on notes. So even, though I have my private practice, but I also do other things, I'll take my computer. I don't do my clients outside. I don't work with them outside, but to go sit outside on the lanai and just enjoy that time outside. That has been a plus. And then those weekends, I just try to, as we say, just live it up, right? Spending time with my family, going out to a lot of festivals, whatever may happen out here. There's like Taco Festival, there's the Lantern Festival. It's always something. So being able to like spend time and plan for those things. So then we have something to look forward to. When we do have a busy week, it's like, oh, I cannot wait until Friday, or I can't wait until Saturday or Sunday to go to worship or whatever it may be for you. Those have been definitely just like self-care, and then just shutting down. Like, I don't have to do the work on the weekend. Like, no. And sometimes if we're on someone else's clock, we're thinking about, oh my goodness, I got to do all these things by Monday. But when you're on your own and you have your own practice, you can schedule when you're going to do these things. Even if you decide, just maybe I'm just going to do this for 10 minutes. And so to me, that is that whole self-care. And the last point is just like taking it back to the balance part. When you feel like you're doing too much of one thing, if you look at it like a ship, right, we just got to move some of those cargo things over to the other side so we can just balance it out. So it's like, if I feel like I'm doing too much of, work, okay, I can take a break, move that over here so we can balance it out. And I'm not overwhelming myself. I don't feel like it's just work, or just fun, but really creating this nice balance of it all. Right. So
I just thought of something too. So this is for my couples out there, like one thing I actually suggest to my couples, and I do with my husband, is with my son, because it's hard. He's little. He's going to be 5 in June. And so he's with us pretty much every time if he's not in school. And so I came up with an idea last year, and it's working for us, where we have to plan it out. But like one Friday out of the month, we'll just both I don't see clients on Fridays. I do like other meetings and stuff. So we'll like clear our schedules and be able to have at least 6 hours while he's in school to go catch a movie, because that's the only time. And so I know that's one thing me and my couples talk about, is like creating time for themselves. And that's so hard. It's hard when it's just you, but when it's you and your partner, if you have a partner, you have 2 schedules to have to manage, and if you have a child, of course, too. So there's a lot of scheduling that has to happen. And so before, when we didn't have all those responsibilities, you can kind of get up and go, and it's not the same way anymore. And so having to think of it differently, of like just putting in that time, and that does help, because at least you're with just each other without having to worry about anything else. And so I definitely recommend that. If you could, like once a month, once every other month, it's really, really helpful for sure. Slow it down.
As I'm listening to the two of you ladies, I'm thinking about, like, it takes me back to like ethics in a good way, right? So we talk about this in like one of our boot camps a lot, where we talk about like your mess, or your whatever what life season you're in can become your message. And one question that we got a lot, Shayla, you were part of those cohorts when I was doing social media a lot in terms of CE workshops, like from 2020 to 2022. And the biggest question that I would get is, well, do you think that I should like also be putting like my family or these fun activities online? And my answer would always be, it depends, right? And so from an ethical standpoint, of course, you want to share information that is always going to be in the best interest of your clients. Oh, I froze. In the best interest of your clients and or the best interest of your business, right? Like both. And so for when I'm listening to the two of you ladies, and I know about your business, like for Melissa serving couples, she doesn't necessarily have to divulge what she does with her husband, but she can use her experience of what has worked with her and her husband. And they may know that she's married. That may be how she gets some of her clients to like come in. That's okay if you feel okay with sharing it, right? To therapists. Because I think that some therapists are also so strict on themselves that it becomes an issue when we teach them how to market, because they only know one way. It's like tunnel vision. Like, no, that's not what I've been taught. And it's like, I know you don't want to give your whole life to the internet. I'm not telling you to make the journal on Instagram, but at the same time, even if we look at Shayla with like work-life balance, or just being able to have time to spend with my kids, or heck, take a bath, right? A lot of those, let's just say, frustrating experiences that she's learned how to balance out, she can now go and teach it to her women. And she can also talk about it on Instagram. Like everything that y'all doing, you're probably pulling into your business, as y'all talked about earlier with framework anyway. You know what the pieces are, but you probably don't know how to market it to talk directly to your clients. Because if I didn't know y'all and I lived in Florida And if I were looking for a therapist, I'd be like, I need to talk to the lady who said we need baths. Like, I didn't hear nothing about anxiety or depression. Let's be real, because we have to speak in the language that attracts our clients. And I think this is where a lot of therapists are missing the mark, is that they're trying to market too hard versus just allowing themselves with what they choose to disclose to come through their marketing. Like, if you want to just talk to moms about taking a bath, you can literally make a whole series. You could make a 5-day challenge. How many baths did you take today? You know what I'm saying? Like, you have no idea what that container can do for a mother. Like, she gonna ask me tomorrow that I take my at least a 15-minute bath, And so I'm just asking therapists to allow their authentic selves to come through their business, because I guarantee you'll probably get more clients.
Yeah.
And so as we go into the last part, this is always fun. And so, and I know I did this with Shayla last time, and I think she learned a lot because she forgot how many streams of income she didn't have. But let's go backwards. So let's start with Shayla first. What streams of income have you been able to add, even if they're open or not, so that therapists can see what possibilities are out there? So shoot, what kind of streams of income have you had?
So I've written a book called Hey Sis, which is a 40-day journal. I have also had a coaching program entitled To Balance, where I literally go step by step in my framework, teaching women about the balance framework. And we won't go into that today because it's about 7 things that they'll learn. I've also, which I really enjoy and which has been like my staple, is teaching therapists how to have a membership or a subscription. And so when you were talking about the marketing piece, that just really stuck out for me, because my students can really get stuck in how they market it. And I'm just like, it's you. This is your baby. This is your jam. Like, all you have to do is show up as you, that information that you've been talking about. So it's really teaching them how to bring in their other stream of income so they can make a bigger impact outside of just the therapy office as well. And then also, because I have a lot of experience, I'm also a consultant for other agencies. So other mental health agencies. So there's Premier, there's also Lightshare. So there's these different companies that pull me in as an expert, a subject matter expert, to come in and help them. And I get to kind of do that on my time and figure that out. And sometimes there's more hours that I contribute than others. So there's room for us to be to go beyond our therapy office if that's anything. So I believe those are it. And also coaching with DTA and being the support coach. There's speaking engagements that I do as well. So the opportunities are endless. You just have to figure out what it is you want to do and like niche down and just shine.
Yeah, I want to pull up just 2 though, because I don't want them to miss this one. So framework was 1. I want people to hear she created a framework to serve her clients. Then what she did is she took that framework and she created different streams of income to serve people on different levels, because somebody can have the same problem, but it's just a bigger problem of that problem. And so it just looks differently. And so I'm just highlighting that because, again, as therapists, we overthink it. We make things more complex. And a therapist would have taken every stream of income, actually an entrepreneur, right? They would have taken every stream of income you just listed and potentially made 7 different businesses versus trying to figure out how they can all fall within your framework, and then you just divvy it out to different ways. So that's one thing, is framework. Number 2 is, I'm just going to read it how I said it. Don't be afraid to go utilize your skill set back in an agency that you left, or an agency like the one that you left. I think that we get on our little soapbox. I can go days for that. We get on our little soapbox about, I'm in private practice now, I'm an entrepreneur, I can't go back to this job, but why can't you go back in your own way? So let's just say Shayla worked with someone, right? And she's like, you know what? I really don't like this schedule. Like, a lot of us don't leave our jobs because we hate the job. Like I left because I don't like the way they ran the job. And that is a difference, right? So I always said, similar to Shayla, I want to work with this population, but I want to work with them on my own terms. It was correctional facilities. So what do? Build a consultation business, or a portion of my stream of income through my business. And I still am showing up as a psychologist. You're still showing up as a mental health provider, but now you get to do it